Welcome to the show today. Today is our very first episode. I'm so excited to have Kavyashree here with us today. We're going to be talking about the importance and challenges of sustainable urban development. But before we get into it, I'm going to do a quick introduction of our guest today. So yeah, guys, this is going to be very, very exciting. All right. So today we have the pleasure of hosting Kavyashree Swamygowda, an ardent integrated urbanism and sustainable design enthusiast. With a rich background in architecture and urban planning studies, Kavya has worked as a research assistant with the Urban Innovation Governance team at the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, and as an assistant lecturer at the School of Planning and Architecture at the University of Mysore in India. Her extensive experience in sustainable cities and urban innovative projects, combined with a passion for teaching and research, makes her a really valuable guest. So we're so excited to have her here today to explore her journey and more insights into sustainable urban development and the innovative projects that she's been involved in. So yeah, guys, if you're listening, get ready for an engaging, informative session. And yeah, welcome to the show, Kavya.
Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming and honoring our invite. We're so excited. So we'll get straight into it with the first question. So could you share with us what initially sparked your interest in urbanization or integrated urbanism and sustainable well?
I started off as an architect. My bachelor's is in architecture. And I always felt that, of course, architecture is a creative field. You're working with a lot of designs, you're exploring different materials, you're thinking about how to design pieces for people who are going to use it ultimately. And then I just felt that I needed to take one step further into exploring, okay, the buildings, the architecture makes the little building blocks of a city. And then I wanted to explore at a different scale, I would say, at the urban scale, and how I was just fascinated by how the city works and all the different elements, the fields that contributes to how we use the city, how we are in the city, and how the city works. So, and I guess that's what made me do my master's in Germany in integrated urbanism and sustainable design. I was super excited to find this master's program. And when I read the modules that they're offering and also how international it was, for me, it was to have this experience in the field of urbanism, urban planning outside India, and also have this conversation with people coming from all over the world into this master's program. I think, that was such an amazing opportunity to be part of this program. Yeah.
Amazing. A really rich international experience, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we were a class of, I think we were a class of 20 students, and 13 of us came from different countries each. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
all with different insights on sustainable urban design. So it must have been really interesting.
Yeah. And then also, it was so motivating. It was not competitive to be with such group of people. It was so motivating. I felt that I learned a lot from the experiences and insights from my colleagues at this program. And I would say it was...
And really inspired you to kind of continue on this path. Amazing.
Yes.
So as you've mentioned, you've had the opportunity to work with the Urban Innovation Governance team at the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. So can you tell us more about the key projects that you were involved in during your time there and the impact that they had as well?
Okay. Yeah, I think it was... a great opportunity to find this spot as working as a research assistant with one of the leading research institutes of Germany, I might as well say Europe. I worked, as you said, with the Urban Innovation Governance team. And it's so interesting that they have a separate team dedicated to working on urban issues. And so I mainly worked, during my time there, I worked on two main projects. The first one, I started off working with a COVID-19 response call project by EIT Urban Mobility. So the project was called RAPID, so Rapid Prototyping in 3D. So it was all about urban mobility and how it's changing the way we are using mobility during COVID, how it changed drastically. Yeah, we all know that. Yeah, the social distancing.
Of course.
And also having this mandatory 1 meter, 1.5 meter distance. And how do you still get people to safely use public transport. And also at the time, I think a lot of projects came about, for example, like pop-up bicycle lanes. The
Yes.
streets, the streets
Yes.
were transformed into this, the bicycle lanes that were people were being able to use.
Of course.
So this project mainly looked at how, it also looked at technology, how we can avoid crowds in the main stations and how we avoid them clashing into each other, and like where are the spots that they are gathering the most and how to avoid this, and how to basically have a safe system of traveling.
Right.
So it looked at this. And my role, of course, the team was an amazing team with scientists, engineers, researchers. So this was at the start of my career. So I worked as a research assistant, and my job was to look at case studies on how other cities are tackling this urban mobility issues, especially during the time of COVID. What are the solutions that they're bringing about and how they are implementing? So I looked at these things, and this was my contribution to the project. And the other project that I was involved in was EU Horizon 2020 project called Sparks. This is a project where it was helping cities to transition to positive energy districts and zero carbon communities.
Cool.
And again, it's a massive project. We had over 30 partners and over 250 people working on this project. So you can imagine it was massive. And again, my role here was in the work package called replication. So basically, this project has had 2 lighthouse cities. We could say that they were leading in innovation and leading in implementing positive energy districts. And then we had 5 fellow cities or follower cities, which sort of learned from these 2 cities. And also they looked at their own challenges and what is the priority in their own city. So my role in this project was, since it was such a big project, and you can imagine that, and also it was during COVID, and also most often everything's online.
Yes.
And I think the goal of my role was to avoid the people working in silos. My role was to bring people together, to exchange, to collaborate, and to learn from each other.
Okay.
For that, I had the opportunity to host what we call as city forums. It was basically an internal project workshop where we had partners coming together and then discussing, okay, what are the issues? How can we learn from each other? Okay, what are you doing? How can I borrow this idea to my city?
Okay.
And we also had experts who came and gave in their insights and inputs. So my role was to design these workshops and also facilitate these workshops and make this facilitation happen of exchanging with each other. And I'm a strong believer of peer-to-peer learning because with my experience at the university as well, I keep saying I really learned a lot from my colleagues by observing, by their presentations, by their ideas, their insights. And I feel like it would be a lost opportunity if we just focus on what we are doing and not looking at how we can learn from others.
So just to ask practically, with the knowledge sharing that we had with across the different cities, what are maybe the 2 or 3 things that you could highlight that were going well in terms of reducing the carbon emissions within the cities, like the projects that they were doing? Maybe if you could just share like 1 or 2 ideas of how they were doing this in their cities.
Okay. For example, I think one of the main ideas that was bounced around was that, we should keep in mind that some project or some idea might work in one city and it might not work in another city. So we always have to contextualize because, of course, the people are different, the culture is different, the urban mechanisms, the systems, the implementation techniques, they are different, and also how people would receive it is different. So I would say that when people were trying to implement, like renovate their buildings into conserving, making it more energy efficient.
Okay.
So there were a lot of challenges compared to like one city to another. So yeah, I think it also sort of made cities realize and have this, bring this issue to the table that, yeah, it might not work in my city. How could I, do it better and also gain ideas from this other cities that they are looking at. So
Okay.
yeah, I would say that a platform to discuss, a platform to learn. I think that was one of the main highlights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that insight. So, a lot of collaboration on learning from each other on how to make cities more sustainable, particularly in, I guess, carbon emission and then the infrastructure that supports all of those initiatives, which is amazing. I think these are also the key aspects of sustainable cities, sustainable infrastructure, environmental sustainability, as well as social inclusivity and equity. So, it's really amazing projects that you've had to work on. So, moving on into our third question. In your opinion, what are the most significant challenges more sustainable? And based on your extensive experience, what are some of the key differences you've observed in the planning elements of Indian cities compared to European cities?
Yeah. I think it's a good question. I mean, the challenges, of course, the classics are there's the urban population growth. So as you know, by 2050, we are going to have 66% of the population living in urban areas.
Yes.
And that's a huge number. And also, of course, dealing with green spaces and the quality of air, the quality of life in general in urban spaces. I think these are the classic and that we would have to, we are already looking at
Of course.
these things. But I guess coming to the differences that I've observed between Indian cities and European cities, having lived in Europe for 5 years now, I would say that, yeah, like European cities sort of had a head start in the way they designed their cities. And I guess right now what they are looking at is also, they're dealing with this topic of energy efficiency and also soft mobility, active mobility solutions, and how to reduce their carbon footprint and how to have more green spaces, more urban street trees, or basically having spaces that provide a good quality of life and helps with your well-being to be in the city. And that's, I would say, also the things that I've observed here is that some things that are so natural and that we take for granted here, for example, wayfinding systems.
Yes.
You have a bus route, a map, everything where you just, when you exit the metro, you know where to go.
Exactly.
And you can easily commute. I mean, also Paris is leading in public transport. So, like I said, it's the city has had a head start, and I would say that India has a lot of potential. Yeah, we do also have, India has one of the largest rail networks, and I think when we come to the city level, we need to basically have this conducive environment that make people use more public transport and also make it more easier to use public transport if you're talking about mobility. And then also Indian cities sort of grew rapidly and organically. So the solutions that we see here might not work in Indian cities.
Of course.
And also like how we use spaces so different culturally as well. And also like with the climate, it's different. And I would say that, little things. It need not be like a massive high-tech intervention. So low-tech interventions and even the smallest of things will make a difference in Indian cities. Just having a bus map or a wayfinding system, or even like having this last mile connectivity. I think that is something that Paris has sort of already achieved.
Yes.
And there is also this concept of 15-minute city. And it's basically that in this radius of 15 minutes, you have all the amenities that you can access to. You have your school, you have your bakery, you have your supermarket, You have your doctors, you have the pharmacies. Yeah, so all you need is in this radius that you can walk within 15 minutes. So I think Paris is, leading at this.
Yes.
I think that's something that we could also look at Indian cities. And I feel like when we also talk, right now I feel like I'm a lot into transport because I'm just super fascinated with the Paris metro. Yeah, and how well connected Paris is. And so I would say that, I just want people to use more and more public transport in India, which we are already doing. But I think the idea is for more like car users or more scooter users to transition from using their cars to public transport.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is so true and also super relatable, you know, coming from South Africa where everyone is in their cars. If we think of like carbon emissions, where in Paris, everyone is using public transport and even the buses are green buses.
Yeah.
So it's really inspiring to see. But another key nugget, I think, which you mentioned was the fact that, yes, we can learn from each other from the different cities, but we need to really understand the local context and localize the solutions as well to really help the people on the ground based on the different contexts. So I think that was really a really key takeaway. And of course, you mentioned the challenges in the beginning, challenges of innovating, finding new solutions. But again, with this, there needs to be finance. And we know that particularly in the infrastructure space, it's very underfinanced. There's a lot of needs to look into private sources, which often leaves, the industry lacking. So this is also another call for action to then say, how do we then get the ODAs or the government funds and just a collaboration, even people on the ground, civil society to advocate for these initiatives. So thank you for that, Kavya. And then in terms of the next question, so can you elaborate on the importance of sustainable urban planning and how it can contribute to the overall well-being of city residents?
Yeah, the well-being topic, I think it's more and more relevant as we are increasing in population in urban areas. I would say that, going back to this example of urban mobility solutions, I think when you look at it, like how much time did you put in your commute to work? And if you're spending more time on your commute, of course, it's more stressful that you feel like you're losing a lot of your time in just traveling just to get to work. I think people would be more happier if the commute distances are shorter. And in order for this to happen, there should be a well-connected network of public transport. And then also, it need not be just, I think public transport shouldn't just be looked at home to work. I think we are more than just work. So it should also be considered in terms of the other so-called third places where for example, going to your library, going to the cinema, going to a park, like all these activities that contributes to the general well-being. I think we would also need to look at how public transport also plays a role in this, and not just consider that, okay, we just need to design public transport for people to go from their home to work and back. It's also, I personally feel it's important to also have public transport that allows people to have access to such spaces, going to museums, going to parks and everything. So I would say that is a huge factor. And also the amount of green spaces that we have in our city, I think we can see that because of the urban sprawl and how rapidly the cities are growing, we are sort of losing green spaces. In India, we often so whenever there is this huge, massive land with a lot of trees, it's usually, I'm giving you an example of the city I come from, the city I'm closest to. So where there is a lake and there are a lot of trees, it's an ecosystem of all this natural things. And we often call such big spaces as the green lung of the city. I think it's both good and sad in a way. it's good that such spaces exist, and it's bad in the way that, okay, all the pressure is on this space, that it is the green lung of the space. So, of the city, I mean. If we had more green spaces, I think the pressure on, just one space would be reduced. And also, I think when this is the only green space that you have access to, of course, you will receive a lot of people going there. So there is also an impact in the footprint of people just accessing this one green space. I think it needs to be a bit more decentralized, and with a certain kilometer of radius, you have this percentage of green space that is usable, that provides cultural services as well. And I would say that that also impacts our well-being as people residing in cities. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So a really, really important focus on making these places accessible, making sure there's more of them. As you've mentioned, it also increases the quality of life and the quality of living for the people really living in these cities. Access to green spaces, access to clean air, clean energy is very important, especially in light of the fact that the world is rapidly urbanizing. You know, you mentioned it earlier about the estimated 66% of the global population is expected to reside in cities by 2050. That is crazy. That is a lot of people who are, moving to the city. So we really need to find these solutions, and we need to find them now. And we know that cities also currently account for about 75% of global carbon emissions. So this is, of course, another, challenge in terms of, reducing the footprint as well. So we really need to find solutions for sustainable urban development, combating these issues. All right. So what role do you believe innovation plays in the development of sustainable cities? And can you provide some examples from your work, as well as share some interesting urban projects from around the world that you believe are noteworthy?
Yeah. Say, of course, innovation is important, especially now with like how the technology is also changing. But I would say that the innovation, as we said, for certain things, it need not be a super high-tech technology to bring about change. It could just be even a low-tech solution would bring even the smallest of change in certain contexts. Of course, we have to contextualize everything. I would say that I think for me, innovation is all about experimentation. So, and also like the participatory approach. When you're innovating something, you also need inputs from a lot of different people, and how you test it. I guess that's also what innovation is. It's an idea, you experiment, you test, you take in feedback, and then, you roll out a better, improved version. And then there is this continuous testing phase, or measuring the impact and how it's working. So, I would say innovation is, it's quite interesting in the field of urbanism, urban planning as well. The projects that I would like to share is, I'm super proud of this project. I haven't worked on it. It's something that I came across. I'm from the south of India, from a city called Mysore, and the state capital is called Bangalore. And in Bangalore, there are two projects that I would like to share. One, again, has to do with mobility. There is a collective called as Alli Serona, which means let's meet there, along with this association called Bengaluru Moving. So they it was, I think this project is, Alli Serona project is quite interesting because it shows us that how participatory approach, how can bring about valuable change to the society, and also the inclusivity of this project is worth highlighting, I would say. So in this project, so they looked at this area of residence where the bus connectivity was not so good. So they had to walk 2 kilometers to the nearest bus stop to get to school, to get to work. And a lot of the people residing in this were middle income, low income groups. And also they are all the workforce of the society in this neighborhood.
Of course.
And in order to get to work, of course, they have to rely on other modes of transport, which might not be safe, which might be expensive. And so they looked at the existing bus route, and they rallied for having a bus stop in their neighborhood, which made, because you have certain thousands of people residing in these areas, and so many people can benefit from having a single bus stop.
Of course.
Yeah, so they rallied they designed a pop-up bus stop,
Okay.
and the people voted for having a bus stop in this place, and the association that sort of helped with designing this, they worked with the community. It was ultimately the women of the community who rallied for this, and they looked at the existing bus map. They came up with the alternate that can allow the bus to go through their neighborhood.
Okay.
So, and then ultimately they proposed, they had this proposal submitted to the local government, and now there is a bus stop in the neighborhood. And it's such a meaningful and positive change. So it could be just, something simple as just having a bus stop, but still it affects so many people. It affects the quality of life of so many people. It allows them to travel. It allows them to have safe, accessible public transport that they use. We say that, we have cars, we have scooters, everyone's using this. But I must say that Bangalore is notorious for its traffic congestions. I don't know, as a South African, Trevor Noah was supposed to perform in Bangalore, and his show was cancelled because he was stuck in traffic.
Wow.
So you can imagine how congested the city is.
Yes.
So, I think Bangalore is a city that really needs to... Now there are 2 metro lines, and they're working on 2 more. But still, the problem of traffic congestion is still one of the highest in the countries. So, that is one project. And the other project, again from Bangalore, is by this firm called Sensing Local. So, Bangalore, again, there is this old fort area, and then it's sort of spread, the urban sprawl. And most often in these old areas, there are little streets called as conservancy lanes. These lanes were mainly used for services. They were service lanes at the back of the houses.
Okay.
And they were not really in good condition, but they were still very much used. They were pedestrian streets. And the company, the firm that worked on this project, along with the local collective called Malleshwaram Hogona. Let's go to this place called Malleshwaram. That's the name of the neighborhood.
Okay.
And so they designed the public street furniture, and then they also brought in artists to have the walls painted with graffiti, with murals, with artworks that represents Bangalore, that represents the neighborhood, that represents with the people, and also they worked with the people. And regarding the financing and the budget you were talking about earlier, I learned that I always wonder, how do people finance such projects, such innovative projects? It's always an issue. And especially in this project in particular, the budget was already allocated for making roads in the neighborhood. They came about with this project, and they proposed this project to the local officials, and a certain part of the budget allocated for constructing roads was brought in to realize this project. So it's just a matter of sharing the budget and not always looking at the functional aspects of it, and also having this improving the already existing spaces. I think that's quite interesting as well.
I love those two stories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also about the collective efforts of the people on the ground who are being mobilized to take action and go to the local, regional, and government offices and saying, hey, these are the problems, these are the local solutions that we can propose. Can you meet us halfway? And then on the other side, with the releasing of these funds and the resource allocations, to then make these initiatives come alive. So very, very, very interesting. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, just one more thing to add.
No
I
problem,
think I think this is something that you've seen, I've seen, that are reclaiming the urban public space. For example, I think COVID-19 really relook at public spaces. You might have seen that, of course, Paris, with a lot of its restaurants and bistros and cafes, has this terrace. You might have also seen that a certain part of the parking spaces is taken out and the restaurant or the cafe is extended on the street level. So this was like done during COVID to have people to sit outside in open and not be congested inside. And many of these spaces, they stayed. They still exist, and it's such a nice thing to see that. Yeah, like we needed to reclaim our space. Yeah, so less parking, less. Yeah. It means that, they are going to use more public transport to get to this place. And also having this, which contributes to the way we use our streets, the quality of life. And I would say that was quite interesting outcome of COVID-19, the parklets, as we call, and the pop-up bike lanes. Of course, as a result, there are more bike lanes now. So,
Interesting, very, very interesting. It's funny that you mentioned that. I was like, oh yes, I've actually noticed that a lot of the parking spaces are now little terraces. Really nice COVID-led innovation there. And then in terms of how do you see the future of urban planning? How do you see it evolving, especially in the context of sustainability and climate change?
I don't know how I see it, but how I would like it to be is, of course, I would, we are in an age and space that the technology is also rapidly evolving. I would like, with this technological advancement, we shouldn't forget the inclusivity of the inclusive approach to designing spaces, of looking at urban public spaces. I think inclusivity and the participatory approaches to having solutions, I think that's super important. And also, the urban green spaces. I mean, a green space it's a living space. It takes time for, if you plant a plant or a tree, it takes time for it to grow. It takes time for it to reach its full stage. So I think we need to look at, it's very time sensitive, certain things, and we need to plan well in advance to have the results. I think that, it's just the fact that things take time. And also at the same time, things are evolving. They're super dynamic. So what you might design for today might not be relevant for tomorrow. I think, you need to take into account also how things are changing and how it takes time to bring about change. And it's always important to involve people, because it's ultimately the people who are using it, especially small local changes. You really need to work with the local communities. And I would say this.
Yes.
This is how I see the future of urban planning: more inclusive, more sustainable, more participatory.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, you also mentioned about including the green agenda as well, which I think is so important in terms of integrating, again, sustainability, climate change, which can really attract the attractiveness of these projects, again, from like a innovation or funding perspective, which I think is really important. All right. So lastly, what advice would you give to young professionals and students who are passionate about pursuing a career in sustainable urban planning?
Oh, wow. By no means I'm an expert. That's why I would prefer to be called as an enthusiast, because I would love to talk about all things urban. I guess from my experiences, I would say that I would just say explore, because urbanism, urban planning, this is such a vast field. There is urban mobility, there is green infrastructure, there is planning, there is a lot of things that contributes to making a city, contributes to planning a good city. So I would just say explore all the different sides of all the different fields of urbanism and see what you like the most, what you feel like that's what interests you. So I guess I think the interest matters a lot. I think when you're interested in something, you invest a lot of your time and energy in getting to know more about this field or about this topic. So I would say before diving deep into a certain topic, I think the first, as a young professional, I think exploration is the key to find your space. Yeah.
Amazing. Exploration is the key to find your space. Really, really powerful words. Thank you so much, Kavya, for joining us today. And thank you for the insightful chat. I've learned so much. I've got so many nuggets. It was really, really great to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. That is the end of our first episode today. So there is a clear path forward in the conversations that we've had today. Really, really insightful. Cities are at the forefront of the fight against climate change and the pursuit of sustainable development. Addressing the finance challenge, fostering collaboration and leveraging technology responsibly and prioritizing inclusivity are the key to unlocking the potential of sustainable cities. So in conclusion, the transition to sustainable cities is a global imperative. I urge you all to understand this. It requires a comprehensive approach involving financial innovation, collaborative partnership, and a commitment to social equity. So by successfully navigating these challenges, we can build cities that are not only technologically advanced, but also environmentally sound and socially just. In light of this, we know that there is a huge funding gap for infrastructure. In Africa alone, it's estimated to be between $130 and $170 billion annually. So traditional funding sources like ODA and DFIs are insufficient. So again, if you're listening, have a thought. How can we mobilize people from the ground up to take these issues seriously and find innovative solutions to bring them to light. Thank you so much. My name is Snare. I'm just a girl from South Africa sitting behind a mic, advocating for the SDGs, making sure that no one is left behind. Yeah.